Hi, it's Jason from drpremed.com. I want to talk to you about getting into medical school and some things you need to know. Getting into medical school is extremely competitive, and I don't want you to think that getting into medical school is going to be walk in a park or that you're overqualified or that you're a special snowflake or that you stand out some way compared to everybody else. Because each year there's over 55,000 applicants to medical school, and 60% of the people who apply to medical school are actually going to be rejected for whatever reason. There's a lot of reasons that go into rejection, but I have to let you know that AdComs are actually looking for ways to reject students, not accept them, because there's just way too many applicants who want to get one of the limited number of spots available in each incoming medical school class. And as I am gearing up for another medical school application cycle, students are emailing me, sending me messages, or I'm just getting feedback even out in public from pre-meds and even their parents too about getting into medical school so they become a doctor. And I just see a lot of things out there that are going to really hurt your chances for getting admitted. The one thing is your numbers. Your numbers matter. Your MCAT score is the number one factor that goes into a medical school admissions decision. Followed by that is your GPA. But what I see taking place is students are waiting to June and July to take the MCAT, even though they want to apply to medical school this year. You don't want to do that. You want to have taken the MCAT early May at the latest, ideally March, April, so that it's going to take about 4 weeks to get your scores back so that you have your MCAT score in hand before you even begin the medical school application process. Because if you only get your scores back in the beginning of July, before you even get out, your application is going to get set and ready to review. That's going to be really pushing you into mid-July, early August or so, because even though you submit all other parts of your application, AdComs are not going to really waste time wanting to look over your application twice. So they're going to just wait until you have those scores in hand before they even move on your application. That means everybody else who applied early and on time, AdComs are already going to be going through their applications, and then yours are going to be stacked up for maybe a couple of weeks before they even get to that. And so that's going to really put you behind in the admission cycle for getting into medical school. So that's why I harp and make a big deal about applying early, applying on time, and with the MCAT, the test you want to take once and only once. And so if you're not prepared for it, or whatever you're doing isn't working with your studies, then you need to find a different routine, but don't sit for the MCAT unless you're absolutely prepared to do well on the exam. And then here's a caveat of advice when it comes to how do you know if you're actually ready for the MCAT. If you're taking official AAMC full-length practice exams and you're scoring consistently where you want to be, that's a good indicator of your readiness to take the MCAT. Now, here's a caveat with that. Let's say your score of 512 on the MCAT and the AAMC practice test. Does that mean you're going to get a 512 on the actual MCAT? No. You could score higher or you could score lower. But you know it's going to actually be a closer predictor of your performance on the MCAT if you take multiple full-length practice MCATs and you average your scores in each section. And so let's say your cars section, you get your average in the last three cars that you did. And then you're going to do it for your biochemical, biological sciences, your physical sciences, your social sciences. You're going to get the average of the last three full length in each of those sections. And then you're going to add those up to get your total MCAT score. And that should give you a reliable predictor of how well you're going to do in the MCAT. Because a lot of students think, oh, I just took this last MCAT, and so now that's going to be the score that I expect to get. No, it's going to be actually the average of the last couple full lengths that you did to give you a better idea, and you want to take the average from each section of the MCAT. So that's a pro tip there that you want to have in mind to really gauge if you're ready for getting into medical school. And what I'm also seeing is students are restricting themselves from where they're applying to medical school. You don't want to do that. You want to apply broadly and widely to give yourself your best chance for admission to medical school. You don't want to narrow down, not apply to enough schools, or go to the other end where you're applying to like 40 or 50 medical schools, because you have to find a sweet spot, which is closer to 17 schools or so, that you want to apply to. Because regardless of where you go or where you apply to, all the medical schools, they're being consistent in what they're looking for out of applicants. So just by applying to more schools does improve your chances. You're going to just be consistently not what they're looking for at more schools, when you're applying. So that's why you want to be very strategic about where you're applying and what you're actually putting in your application. And I always tell students this, that you're a sample size of one, and when you apply, usually what happens is you're applying from your personal perspective of what's in your best interest and what you want to do. But unfortunately, that's not how medical school admissions works. AdComs, they have to look at their whole medical school, the institution, and fill a diverse class. And also, they know that there's other medical schools who applicants are applying to, and they want to make sure that their medical school is ranked. So they want to have the most qualified applicants possible when they're selecting people for who they want to admit to medical school. And so if you know there's deficiency in your application, that means that AdComs are also going to know deficiency in your application, and they're going to pass on it, because why should they give a spot to somebody who's a deficiency when they have other applicants who did all the work and all the requirements of getting into medical school? So keep that in mind. Just because you might think you're outstanding wherever you're at school, that everybody's telling you you're such a great student, you're going to have so much potential for a career in medicine and becoming a doctor, yada yada yada. That's all great, but I like to use the analogy of college sports and athletes, and how you can be the big man on campus. Everybody knows your team, your name. You're the go-to athlete. You get all the points and accolades because you're the best at what you do on campus for that particular sport. But you know what? There's a lot of colleges, there's a lot of athletes, and not all of them go pro, as the NCAA says. A lot of the guys and women, they're great in college, but when they have to take it to the next level and become pros, they don't even make the team. Or they're just on the bench or on the practice squad, or however one you want to put it, but they're not even on the field competing, when at the previous level they were the best, the brightest, the most athletic. And that's the same analogy that happens with pre-med students. You're in college, grad school, you might be the best, everybody thinks the world of you, you're so great, you have so much promise and potential and all of this, and everybody just gives you all these accolades and just gives you the highest letters of recommendation. But then you got to remember, once you get to medical school, everybody who's applying is going to just be like that in most cases, or definitely students who get accepted to medical school. They're going to be exceptional. They're going to be at the top. They're going to be the best. They're going to be bright. They're going to be smart. They're going to have all the extracurricular activities. They're probably going to have more extracurricular activities than you thought were even possible, and just have a very compelling story and background, and that's why they get accepted to medical school. But if you're just thinking in your own little bubble of everybody telling you you're great and wonderful, that's probably not good enough, because there's somebody out there who's better than you, more qualified, has more potential, and is bringing more to the table for medicine than what you are. And so that's just something that you need to keep in mind throughout this process. Again, refer back to like college athletes and how they're so great, all of that stuff. But then when they want to go to the next level, they don't even make the team, or they're on a practice squad, or they're definitely not starting. It's only really the best of the best at every single level. That's what's going to be what you need to keep in mind as a pre-med student going through the application process for getting into medical school, because there's just a lot riding on this about what can happen to you as becoming a doctor, getting into medical school, and actually speaking to some residency directors, physicians, and they were saying, yeah, what's one of the biggest concerns that medical students have? It's passing their boards, and then also their debt level that they have from graduating. But the doctors are like, do you know what the average physician's salary is? It's about $209,000. And then if you go into the specialties, it's a lot more than that. And what they say is, yeah, you're going to be in residency. You're hardly going to make any money because you're going to just be working really hard, just trying to learn how to be a great doctor, how to take care of patients. But as soon as you graduate residence and become attending, your salary is going to skyrocket, and you're going to be able to pay back your student loans so fast, so quick, just because of all the income you have. And one resident director, he said that he had, I believe it was a cousin who was doing interventional radiology, and he was from the East Coast. He was graduating from his fellowship, and then he was getting recruitment offers. And guess what? One state, North Dakota, was offering $1 million per year for him to come there to be an interventional radiologist. 1 million per year, and he wasn't even working 4 weeks a month. I think it was 2 to 3 weeks a month, just because of the need and demand for his physician services were that great that he was getting that type of money. Now that's an easy way. I said 5 years. Heck, I could move somewhere for 5 years if you're going to pay me $1 million, and I'm still going to get to do what I love, which is practice medicine. But at the same time, he's going to pay off all his student loans. He's going to come out on top, and it's all about living frugally and within your means. And you don't want to just start buying lavish, extravagant things just because you're attending. Physicians, stay within your means and be financially smart so that you'll have a nest egg by the time you're going to be able to retire. Or like a lot of the medical students, you'll find out they have parents who are physicians or are in different like industries, and you'd be surprised how many of your classmates are extremely wealthy in medicine where they don't take out student loans. Their parents cover their medical education, their tuition, their living expenses. Some of these kids, they may have to pay their parents back, but it's not going to be with interest or anything like that. And they just don't have that burden of a bank calling them, harassing them, sending them letters, or whatever they do to make sure that people are compliant with their student loan payments. So that's just something to consider that you're going to be taken care of as a doctor. And so don't worry about that. Go in the specialty that you love, that you enjoy, because that means you're going to be a better doctor instead of you're just looking at something for what's the compensation? How much can I get paid for this specialty and doing these procedures? That's not what you want to do. You want to go where your heart's at, because all doctors, for the most part, are very well paid for in medicine, and that's not something you need to worry about. But I want to just get back to the point of medical school admissions is tough. I keep saying this over and over, but the hardest part of medical school is actually getting in. So once you're in, that's great. You're basically going to be set for life, because over like 96%, I believe, of people get in medical school actually matriculate and graduate and go on to residency, become a doctor, have a medical license. And I definitely want this for you. So if you're on the fence, you're on a bubble, you have questions, you have concerns about being pre-med, get into medical school, applying, reach out to me at drpremed.com, because I always look forward to hearing from you, giving you excellent tips and advice to make sure that you're on the correct path, because I hear too many students who are doing things that aren't going to get them into medical school. It's going to hurt their chances, but they don't know any better. They never applied to medical school, or they're thinking their cousins, siblings, aunt, uncle, or even parents can give them tips and advice, and usually that doesn't work, because I know it, I see it all the time. They're not 100% invested in the medical school admissions process, so they're usually going to tell you what worked for them or what they've heard other people have done, but it's not actually accurate, it's not repeatable, it's unique to them. I say sample size of one does not make a good test study, so that's not what you want to do. Just because somebody said it worked for me, that's going to work for you. You want to work with somebody who actually does this, lives it, breathes it, and gets students in. And that would be me, Jason at drpremed.com. So I look forward to hearing from you, making sure that you're getting into medical school, you're not making any silly mistakes, you're not doing anything that's going to hurt your chances of getting into medical school. And even if you're not the best applicant based on the numbers, then we need to talk, because there's things that you can do to boost your chances of getting into medical school. Obviously, you need to have bare minimum standards and be a competitive applicant. But once you get past that, there's only so many ways you can slice and dice the numbers for what makes somebody a good applicant for medical school, and then that's where AdComs start looking at everything else that you're bringing to the table, and you need help to make sure that you're not making the same mistakes I see everybody else doing, talking about the same topics, writing about the same topics, rehashing the same things over and over again, and it's just not doing anything to move your application forward. So if you need help, you need to get into medical school, you want to make sure that you apply once and you get in the first time around, then reach out to me, Jason at drpremed.com, because I look forward to hearing from you and helping you to get into medical school and become a doctor.